And what is it like for you on day zero when you're preparing to join this team? What goes through your head, and how do you kind of like make sure that you're ready for this project?
Yes, that's a great question because I feel that every project, whether it's long or short or long, big or small, um, it requires you to take a deep dive into what the subject is. Whether I'm in with the Ed Gain story, when I need to learn about um, his mental illness and what fascinated him with Nazi Germany and or whether I'm in a historical timepiece creating sets for Abraham Lincoln, or whether I'm in a sci-fi show or an astronaut show. I always have to take a deep dive, learn really quickly about the subject at a surface level at least, but sometimes even deeper. I have to understand what was the time period, what were the cultural elements of relevance at the time, what were the aesthetics, why not, what were the who were the people, who were the main players, um, and and for me, that's really fun and fascinating. Many times, most shows have a researcher on board that already provides you. When you get there, they have already done extensive research. They have hundreds and hundreds of images and documents for you to look over. But you always do a little bit of that on your own as well. Um, and I think that is part of the fun because you get to learn more about a subject that you often had no idea about. Whether it's the clan wars in Hawaii or in Monster's case, Ed Gain and growing up in small town America in that time period. And what about mental illness and about uh, um, religious fanatism that was his world at the time, and uh, and knowing those things may or may not change the art you do, but at least it puts you in the headspace to understanding the persona, the characters, the situation, the period that you're dealing with.
What were some of the tasks that you got to do on a show like Monster, specifically for the prop department and or any other department?
Yeah, so for Monster season three was unique for me. Because normally in 90% of what I do is almost always I work on sets and keyframes. I work on basically on the environments and on keyframes, sometimes on vehicles. But Monster was unique because it was almost purely props. I have worked on one or two shows where I've only worked on props. But but Monster was unique in that way, and the props were almost all 2D elements. It had to do with the Ed Gein finds these Nazi propaganda images and magazines that shows a lot of images of these voluptuous German women that created sexual fantasies in him. So we had to and also depicted what they did to to Jewish encampment people that were in concentration camps, but also what they did to American soldiers that they captured, and then the torture that they took them through, and that created for him fantasies and really like destructive and awful thoughts of wanting to create those things in real life. So we had to do quite a bit of research in that, and this is a world that I knew very little about, and it's actually one of the shows where I felt uncomfortable to like reading up on it because it's gruesome. It's gruesome and it's gross, and it's really sad actually to think about someone can be so mentally ill that they start causing that so much pain and destruction to the people around them. But in this particular case, So I had to do quite a bit of research in that to recreate these magazines that he would be looking at to create these fantasies. But also those magazines, we had to create images that then matched set pieces that were filmed because later on or throughout the show, um, the bitch of Buchenwald, that who is the lady that he in his mind falls in love with. We film her in Nazi Germany doing these different things, him fantasizing about it. So it's basically what's happening in the magazines in front of him. We then later film that. So it had to match, well, it's a little bit what the actors looked like and what the sets would look like that we were building, but it also had to make sense in a historical perspective. So it was a little bit of a puzzle to make all of that work, and it had to be clear enough. The imagery had to be clear enough that people could get a glimpse of them in a matter of a second or two, because we knew that the camera would be filming all these props and see him observe them. So the viewer has to be able to see the image, clearly understand what it is, without the camera staying on those images for a very long time. Um, so it was a unique task. Normally, that's not my task. Normally, I'm creating much more around the sets or props that are larger at scale and seen for a longer time. So it was different but fun.
And what is your process like for a show like this, where do you produce multiple versions, or do you create one and then you get feedback, and then who has the final say of what's going to be on camera?
Yes, a very good question. We went through so many different iterations, and when whichever show I work on, my philosophy is often uh, rough it out first to make sure that we're on the same is on the right path. Um, and sometimes it's a machine gun approach. Is it this? Is it this? Is it this? Is it this? For the producers or the showrunners or the directors to say this is what we need. Um, and in order to not lose or waste a lot of time, that whatever I produce has to be rough enough for them to understand what I'm trying to do without spending days and days and days going down the wrong path. Um, so in this case, it was to figure out what she would look like, in what styles would we depict this. Would it look like magazines did in the 50s and 60s, or would it be more modern so that it's clear for the audience what it is? But it's always uh, you fail and you know you're gonna fail, and you try to fail quickly in order to know in order to arrive at the right solution the fastest. And sometimes that happens right away. You nailed it. This is it. Let's go with it. Sometimes, like in this case, it took us a while to really find the correct aesthetic that would work. And then once we had that, then we took it and ran with it and produced all the assets that was needed. And the assets that we see on the show in camera is probably 20% of all the assets that were created. And that's always the case. You create so much more, and then it's up to the director to use whatever they need to. But we were happy with the outcome of it, and I'm very happy for Matthew and the team that he was nominated for the Art Directors Guild Award.